And first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
indivisible,
for liberty
liberty and justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Do we have a quorum?
We do, and there's Alan Buss. Dr. Buss, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Elaine, can you call roll, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe Filer,
Present.
Alan Buss,
Present.
Steve Lupian, Doug Chamberlain,
Here.
Jill Bramlett,
Present.
John Masters,
Here.
Fred Von Ahrens,
Present.
Chairman Bayteski.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Great. Next item is approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, may I propose an alternate
Yes, please.
agenda, just changing order? Thank you. What I'd like to do, just given priority and some folks that have to leave, I'd like to move the expansion of the charter school portfolio till later in the agenda so that if we don't get to it, we can spend adequate time on it later. And then first, under the business executive director update, go right into what's time of critical is the unified governance model, then the applications committee update, NASCA report, WD update, finance committee update, and then finally the expansion of charter school portfolio.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor of the reordered agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. So I think it's funny when I print this out, some of the words don't show up. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Doug, was that you, Doug, that seconded?
That was
No, I moved it.
Okay. Any changes to the agenda? Any changes to the minutes? All those in favor of approval of the minutes as printed, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, moving on to business, the executive director report.
Thank you,
Mr. Waller.
Chairperson. Thank you. This month, I wanted to kind of give a forward-looking overview of things coming up for our board. We got a busy year ahead of us here, or into that busy year, with just a preview of some things that are coming up, really important things. So I'll just go through those. The first one is the consideration of the Alpine Amendment. It's my first task that's identified in this report. This amendment requests a change in service providers from APA to Wyoming Classical Academy. The amendment has been shared with the board and forwarded to our legal counsel. Our counsel, Mackenzie Williams, is currently reviewing the document and will provide his analysis and recommendations to the board upon completion. My recommendation, Chairman, is that we schedule a discussion of the council's feedback during the week of February 16th, followed by a board discussion about next steps at our February 18th meeting. If feasible, it would be beneficial to identify next steps no later than February 18th, as both schools are eager to receive guidance as soon as possible. So that would be my recommendations, that we wait for Mackenzie to give his thoughts on that and give us some recommendations. Then we will meet as a board to make a decision on that, or to at least have a discussion and talk about next steps. So,
Kenzie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Madam Chair, I don't. This is high on my priority list. I just haven't been able to look at it in sufficient depth in time for this meeting.
Thank you. Mackenzie is tied up with trials, and apparently those trials and those judges take precedence over us folks.
Not in
Now,
my not in my heart, Madam Chair. Only on my calendar.
Okay.
so really what we're trying to define is what the process looks like moving forward and what that timeline looks like. I think one of the goals would be to get things moving and hopefully headed in the right direction by the end of February, so that if we feel that as a board we cannot approve this amendment, that that Alpine has time to reapply in the March window. John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. At one point, we were talking about a RTO or request to open worksheet or agreement, something along the lines that NASCA was suggesting we do. Is that something that is moving forward as well? Because that might be something we'd want to incorporate in a reconfigured amendment to the charter.
You're
So
catching me cold, Mr. Masters. I've not heard of that. So
Can I take that one, Madam
Sure.
Chair? Yeah, I know exactly what John's talking about. And yes, that would be, if our decision was to approve that, we would want that incorporated in. And I've got that document. We just need to finalize that document, but that's a really good point. We want that incorporated into the contract. And basically what it is things we want to see them doing in their year prior to opening. And I think it would be a good guideline for a school anyway. So yeah, I think that it would definitely be part of the plan, and I appreciate the input and suggestion.
Madam Chairman, follow up.
John,
So will we have a final version of that we can consider and approve in advance of the discussion about Alpine? Is that your plan?
It is now. Yeah. I've been so busy with the application, but no. I think yes. The answer is yes. I will make time to do that because I think that would be important.
thank you.
Yeah.
So to me, it's very important. In fact, I did not read the contract until this morning. I just sort of laid it back, thinking I would wait until Mackenzie provided his input to us. So I think his input to me is like a critical key step, and see where we go from there. Any more comments or questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Fred.
So, no, I agree, and with John's comments as well, that I think this unified governance document is the most critical piece of the process, because no sense even discussing Alpine unless we have that tight and comfortable. That'll also be and I'm sure future models down the road, whether it's a year from now or 10 years from now. So we want to get that right. This is the first major contract we've done like that. And then I think some concerns have been raised about Alpine from several board members, including myself. Just make sure that it is behind it. But I think that's a parallel path that they owe us that answer. We can talk about that later as a matter of process. But let's get this unified governance document nailed first. And I think you're right. By the end of February is a great target. Thank you.
John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess I wonder if we should be getting some guidance from our council on when is an amendment required. I know there have been many changes along the road for Alpine, and this is the first amendment. So if we knew, maybe we would have these being done sequentially along the way. I'll just offer that as a suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Mackenzie?
Madam Chair, I think that is an important question. I don't have a particular answer for that right now, and I suspect that ultimately the answer will be there's going to be some clear areas, and there's going to be a fair amount of gray in the middle, in which the board will have to exercise some discretion, obviously based on the facts and circumstances before it. So that's sort of broad strokes what I would expect to look at. And maybe it's going to be a very fact-based determination in terms of whether a particular amendment would be permissible, or whether it's so drastic that it effectively my measure at this point is, does it sort of invalidate the application process? Is it basically getting around the application process by amending away things that the board would need to consider? And that's kind of my yardstick right now. So I will look at including a more coherent statement of the analytical process that I'd suggest the board use in those cases as part of this memorandum.
Thank you. Any other comments? I will just share my comments. As I looked at it, I kind of wondered, like, where's the letter that came forward from Dave Jenkins? Certainly to me outlined what they were recommending for or suggesting for changes to the contract. But then the appendix was basically, as John mentioned it earlier, and Fred mentioned it, is in essence, the unified governance structure that they're trying to put in place. So I'm looking for a more concrete, defined contract than I think we've received at this point. But that's, Doug, did you have a comment?
Me?
Yeah, your screen lit up, so I thought
No, I was having a drink of my green tea.
All right.
anything else? Well, let's move on to the adjoining conversation about this, which is the unified governance model. And Alan agreed to champion that discussion.
I thank you, Madam Chair. So we presented several months ago this idea of the unified governance model, which would basically be kind of an oversight or structure that would have schools that are functioning underneath that governance. And so the conversation that we wanted to have today was basically putting some guidelines in terms of what is it we expect, what is it we would want to see on this, of basically what's in bounds and what's out of bounds, maybe is the most generic way of putting this. So I guess I'll just open this up. What would be, from the board's perspective, what are some of the things that you see are strengths, and also where we might want to put some limitations on what the structure would look like?
What are the must-haves versus like-to-haves is how I would say it.
Okay, thank you.
John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we are in the situation where we've already approved 2 charters, I think it would be imperative that the one or both charters be amended to reflect the change to the unified governance. If we are not at that stage, but we're being asked to expand an existing charter, I think that's an amendment process, but also probably looks like a de novo review of the new application for the new location. So those would be my preliminary thoughts on what it would look like. And then I guess I wonder, when we seem to have kind of this overarching entity above 2 or more charters, I think we should have a clear understanding of where the lines of authority are, so that we know whether or not authority is being exercised by that overarching authority, or whether it is simply providing services in the furtherance of the operation of the individual schools. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can I go back to the beginning of your comment, please?
My comment?
Yes. Take me through the 2 schools. What,
Well,
are you fast forwarding, or, what does that do with our situation today where we're sitting on one that,
well, we have 2 charters that have been granted. Neither one of those charters says we're going to operate in a different location, or we're going to be partnered with another school, or we're going to have a common management, or anything like that. Neither charter says that. So I'm not saying,
specific charters are you referring to? Because I
well,
view
let's say
with,
Alpine and Casper. Let's just say. As
oh,
an
okay, okay, sorry.
And so I don't know if both would need to be amended or whether we could find some way to avoid amendment at all. But it seems to me that that's one of the really important things that we get straightened out. And I pointed this out early on in the process that if we had a situation where we had to revoke or rescind or do something to one charter, and there was only one charter out there because it was one charter with multiple locations, how would that affect locations that were not, let's say, violating whatever it is that required us to take that action? So I think there, at least at some level, is an advantage of multiple charters where each can be handled independently. But I'm not quite sure what that looks like.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Fred,
Thank you.
I said, did you have your hand up? John Waller, you're next.
Yeah, I
So-
just felt like it.
Whoa, after Fred.
Just a little clear. I think that as we're doing right now, if somebody like a classical or a new entity wants to create a unified governance document, that to me needs to be approved by us. Second of all, I think we've covered this already, but I just wanted to be clear from my mind that it doesn't matter who's applying under that unified governance plan. They're applying to us as if nothing has changed in terms of the process. Once they're approved by us, obviously going forward, they would be applying to go under a unified governance plan if one was approved. But right now we've got both an approved school, and now we're really approving the unified governance plan and then the amendment. So I think they all need to be approved, and they all need to be approved through us. And I think that's the process we're under right now. And then finally, we've talked about the flow of funds. My expectation, and I believe, Alan, we've talked about this in the application committee, that flow of funds is still going with that school and with that district, not through a unified governance organization that has control of the money for all the individual charters. So that's kind of my thought.
John Waller?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just kind of to piggyback on what Fred was just talking about. One thing that has come up numerous times in our application committee that should just be noted if we're having a brainstorming is they really want to hold the contract with the individual schools and not with the I don't want to call it the mother school, but not with the initial, the school that's sponsoring them. That was a point that I've heard a number of different times, that we want to be the ones holding the contract with individual schools. So I think that's what Fred was alluding to, but I just wanted to offer that. That's something that I've heard a number of times from board members.
John Masters, I see your hand, but I'm going to call on a couple others and then I'll circle back to you if I may, please. Jill, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
No, I tell you, this one, it makes me nervous. Just in the sense of, I probably really don't have a real clear understanding of it, but it makes me nervous in the sense of fair representation on that board for those schools. And so I just want to make sure that that doesn't get lost somewhere. I think those schools that fall under another school need to be able to have a voice as every other charter school. So that's.
Thank you. Joe Filer?
I'm going to just tag off of what Jill said. It makes me a little bit nervous too. And I think the little bit of time I've spent in Alpine, we really have two different communities. And so, yeah, I would say it makes me nervous, and the representation that, Alpine might not have with Wyoming Classic Academy. But from all that perspective, I think all of us certainly want to make Alpine successful. and they need a school. In some way, we have to find a way to do that, but try and give them the best chance for success.
Doug?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking how I could keep my comments as short as possible. But my experience in life and these kind of decision-making processes has proven to me, at least, to be if in doubt, don't.
Well, okay. How do we get you to do instead of don't? What would you need to see in terms of this process in order to be able to move forward with it?
You asking me personally?
Yes.
A new application.
Okay. John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciated the comment about the finances, for example. We know that ADM is different in these two districts, and I think we need to be very careful that the ADM that's going to each school is spent in that school to the extent possible. That raises a host of issues. If you had one headmaster, how do you pay for that headmaster's salary from two different sources of funds? What is the allocation process? And that kind of touches on the question of board representation. If the board is overly represented by one of the two schools, it can operate in a way that harms the minority school. And I think that just is an indication of a host of other problems. For example, in selection of curriculum, payment of all sorts of expenses, salaries paid to teachers, all sorts of things. So I see that there will be a lot of complications here, and I appreciate the work being done. And I'm not sure what the solutions are, but I want to reiterate that we have to be very careful here, I think.
Thank you. Alan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, and so thank you, Madam Chair. The way I've been looking at this, and again, I tried to frame it this way from the beginning, but really looking at where is the school independent and where is the school then working together with the others through the unified governance model, and what I'm hearing is consistent with that as well in terms of where's their independence. What we're looking for is the individual school is independent in terms of their charter. They hold that with us, not with someone else, which then plays into their accountability. They're individually accountable to us. Their funding is through us or directly to that school. Some measure of local voice, whether that's a smaller local board or some sense of active or of an active role at the community level. Also, local administration that would also then tie into having a voice in terms of curriculum and so forth. What might be joint is more maybe a broader oversight board, but again, with limits in terms of what they can do. But primarily it would be for providing services and support, is kind of the way I've heard these pieces coming out in terms of what would the role of the unified structure be, and really we're leaning towards providing as much independence for the local school as possible and outlining what that would be.
Thank you. I'll tell you the two things that come to mind to me is that, that I'd like to see as guardrails is what our job is, which is we are the authorizer. And what does that responsibility mean? And the other is we are the LEA, and what does that responsibility to mean? And so as you go through, all the bits and pieces of things that happen, it needs to circle back that those get put on our plate. John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alan's comments brought to mind another concern. I think there needs to be a mechanism where and consider we might have 5 schools under this, where a participating school can withdraw what in the corporate world we would call a corporate divorce. If for whatever reason they find that their objectives do no longer align with the greater body, somebody needs to have the ability, and I think that's a local board issue, that somehow they need to be in a position to do that unilaterally. And I know that might seem a bit, harsh, but I think somehow we've got to give the local people a lot of power in this. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I think that's important to everybody, should be at least.
And to that point, and to what Jill and Joe both said, is how do you re-equalize the board as new schools come into it so that there is equalization of representation on the board? And what does equalization mean? If you've got one school with 367 students and another school with 100 students, what does representation look like? And I'm not saying I know the answer. I'm just asking the question. Doug?
Well, I want to compliment all of you who have spoken with extreme wisdom and the real from a 30,000 feet. The water surrounding the issues just gets muddier and muddier. And these are excellent questions, none of which, most of which I don't know that we can answer in the time frame that we have left. And I think you've done an excellent job of asking the very pertinent issues and the pertinent questions.
Madam Chair?
Yes, John.
I guess I would wonder if our council could tell us whether models of this sort are anticipated by the statute. And if he feels they are not, maybe we should be asking for the legislature to give us a little guidance on how they would like to see unified school arrangements formed. And I just don't know the answer. I'll just throw that out there, and I'm sure McKinsey would like to study that. So I'm trying not to put you on the spot, McKinsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The statute is extremely unclear. The only thing that is clear is that it talks about having one entity, one applicant that can operate more than one charter schools. Other than that, it is fairly silent. So from that, we can derive that it certainly is contemplated that you would have one organization running or operating, depending on how lawyerly you want to sound, but operating more than one charter school, that's certainly permitted. Some of these other permutations are innovative. And of course, the sort of conservative lawyer in me recoils at innovation. When I don't know what the consequences are necessarily, that makes me cautious, right? And so that's one of the reasons to carefully consider some of these agreements. And I'm starting to sort of look at, what it is exactly we want. I mean, if you want the most perfectly safe territory, it is you can have an entity that operates several charter schools, provided that they apply for each of those charter schools and go through that process. And then you hold each charter school to the requirements for that school based on their approved application and charter contract. That is the simplest and the safest form to do any of this. Beyond that, we start getting into some there be dragons kind of territory, where it's not entirely clear what those innovations look like. So I know I didn't clarify anything in particular except for one thing, which is we have one model that I'm certain is legislatively safe and approved. Everything beyond that, I think we have to take a closer look at.
So I'm going to ask the question of you all is, how would you feel about this process? Oh, Fred, sorry, I saw you didn't see your hand up. Go ahead, Fred.
And Madam Chair, I heard another voice try to jump in, but I wasn't sure who that was. But my comment is just that I feel, and I'm a little sidetracked by some of the things McKenzie said, which I agree 100% with. But bear with me as I lost my train of thought, please. Oh boy. Why don't you just go forward? I got sidetracked here.
I mean, the question I'm going to ask is, does this need to be a well-defined, well-stabilized process forever? Or can we grow into the process and evolve as it happens? Fred, I'm going to call on you before you forget.
Thank you. I'm very sorry. A lot going on in this room here. Plus, Mackenzie, I really appreciated your comments. Look, we've heard from academica, and I think we've been exposed, particularly I think the folks that went to training, to these models. These models are all across the country and very successful. And I think, and that's why I think we're putting so much energy into it. Once we set it up, quite frankly, I think it's going to be a much more efficient way of managing similar schools, you know, as this is proposed. And I hope we have a broader group, not just one type. But, you know, it would be, my opinion, a much more efficient way for the state to manage instead of having what is looking like different districts and different costs all over the state. So I think we need to figure this out. I think we're putting the appropriate amount of time in it. And I think it's been proven to be successful across the country.
Thank you, Fred. You know, I'm going to go off script here, and Chad Aller, I'm sorry to do this to you. Like I said, I guess, you know, you didn't know what it was to be a panelist, but based on your experience, can I call on you?
At your own peril, yes, you certainly can.
What do you think? What would you say would be the must-haves in order to be able to put this kind of model together?
Yeah, I guess again, just speaking based on experience, the biggest value proposition, I guess, of charter schools is that local control, that local relationship with stakeholders that are engaged and live in that community where that school exists. So I think that's paramount personally. If it slips, if that slips lower on the priority list, then the local best interests of those kids in those classrooms start to be overshadowed by the best interest of the conglomerate, whatever that is. And that's not to say that they can't coexist. It just, again, I just think that the priority needs to be that local bit. Maybe just one footnote on that is based on experience. I've seen that, you know, if there's a Venn diagram and there's sort of like a education decisions or the best education decisions on one circle, and then the other circle is, you know, the interests of the conglomerate or of the pit. Those two, a good business decision isn't necessarily a good decision for a local community, and the best local community decision may not make sense from a purely business perspective. So, you know, we got to, again, just preserve, in my view, again, just preserving that local context and control piece is really important.
Well, basically, what I hear you say is you want to optimize that overlap between those two circles.
Yeah, and yeah, that.
Yeah.
Dickie Shaner, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we'd certainly like to hear from you if you have something you'd like to say about this.
Yeah, I don't have any particular opinion one way or another, other than I agree with Fred that we really need to talk through it comprehensively. And I think there really is a sincere interest in some of these communities to expand off that Wyoming classical model. So if the board's comfortable, you know, I think there is, you know, a desire to do that in these communities.
I just throw out there once again our statutory responsibilities as the authorizer and the LEA. But Joe Filer?
I have a question and then a statement. I can't recall exactly why Alpine was not able to look at their own service provider. There was a reason, as I recall, of trying to go this route, and I don't recall what it was. And then the second part of this is a statement is, if for instance Wyoming Classic Academy is the Alpine's under that charter, and I can't ever foresee this happening, but we've had these discussions in a board. If we have to revoke a charter for whatever reason, then where does that put Alpine or another community under Wyoming Classic Academy? What happens to them? Or what happens? Are they just in limbo? I don't know. If somebody has the answer to that. That would be one of my concerns. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I mean, to me, I looked at like what benefits could we reap from this? Well, the whole shared curriculum, the whole shared professional development, the whole shared part of both the educational experience as well as the back room experience, to me would be some real synergies that could be gained. Saying that, how do we do that at the same time we maintain our responsibility as the LEA and the authorizer? I know that there's somebody in the attendees that has their hand up, but at this point, we're really not open for public comment. Amy, I'm sorry. Doug?
Madam Chair, if I could offer another observation. When I attended and we attended the meeting in Alpine, we were presented with a factual situation at that time. I'm not accusing anybody of being untruthful, but the facts of a model for a school. And I supported that. And then since that time, we've seen a gradual change and in several different aspects. And now we find ourselves in a situation where we're expected to real quickly come up with decisions for which all of you who have raised questions today, certainly we don't have the answers to. And I just think it'd be unwise for us to continue down this road when the applicant has changed. We haven't, but the applicant has changed. The situation has changed where it's hardly recognizable.
Say more about the applicant has changed.
The applicant has not performed in the way we were told they were going to perform when we were in Alpine.
Okay.
So,
Anyone else?
just to help me understand that, does that mean that it's because they're switching providers? Is that the reason why they haven't? Is that what Doug's trying to say? Is that's the big change that they didn't do?
Madam Chair, Jill, at the time we were up there, we were presented with a building plan, an estimate of the cost, and we were told that at that time we had needed to make a quick decision so that they could move forward. If we didn't make the decision in time, then the building was going to cost more. Well, then through the process, the buildings all disappeared. We're into these modulars, and then all kinds of questions as far as coordination with the overall school. Quite frankly, I thought it was a good idea to put them under Casper, but just an initial reaction. But as you can tell from the questions been raised today, I think all those questions are very, very succinct, and I don't have the answers to.
And then, Madam Chair, I guess I would ask too, is that, were you asking board members and maybe McKinsey as well to identify what the must-haves are and what the ones that we don't need? Well, I don't understand that either.
Yes. I'm asking for what are the must-haves? What do we feel is absolutely necessary for us to move forward with this unified governance process, and feel comfortable about it and still be maintaining our statutory responsibilities?
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, Madam Chair, so what I'm hearing again is one of the must-haves is a level of control, local control. And some of those areas where I think we're very, very unified on, and that is a high level of local control over the funding, that the funding is really coming to that school. And then from there up to the unified governance group rather than the other direction. And then again, where we're not quite so sure is again what the local board might look like, or the local voice, maybe the best way to put that, and then local administration. But again, I think it's clear that again, our role as the authorizer and the LEA has to be centered on that particular school in terms of its independence and its accountability. So that again, if in the occurrence of a discontinuance, that it doesn't take down the entire unified group, it's just that one particular school, I think is the way that's been phrased.
Fred? John Masters, I guess I'll call on you. Go ahead.
No, I was just hitting my mute button, unmute button. Thank you. And as usual, Alan, that was a wonderful summary. And you captured the essence of what I think John Masters had mentioned in terms of what I'd call a separation clause. The only thing I would add is that in the case that, and just to be clear, and we talked about this right from the beginning, the individual school would choose to pull away from the unified school structure because the community wants a change. Therefore, they have the capability to do that, and their contract is with us, and that would be an amendment. So I think that's another mechanism that's not unlike the situation we're in now. But I think we just have to have that consideration also, because those things do happen over time. Thank you.
John Waller?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. I want to make sure that we're kind of transposing two different things right now. What's been brought forward by Alpine is an amendment to their contract to change service providers. That's what we're dealing with there, and there are certainly similarities to the unified governance model and all that, but that's the one issue. And then we have a separate issue on, do we want to allow future schools to go under the unified governance model? And so I just want to make sure we keep those two things clear, because I don't see a path. I think we don't want to say one answer is going to fit all this, because there certainly are two different issues: an amendment to a contract and the possibility of a unified governance model for schools going forward. And those schools would have to go through the application process that opens in March. So just a point of clarification.
Well, to me, that got a little murky, John,
Okay.
when the document we received, the first paragraph says, district membership agreement entered into in 2025. So this, to me, changed the role from them being the charter school management organization to becoming a unified governance model. So that's where I'm a little bit confused.
And I agree, and I think we need to clarify that. I mean, that's something we need to clarify.
I will
just want to
say
make sure,
Jessica Leneve is in the attendees if we so choose to want to bring her in. John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My recollection early on was that the financial ability of the Casper School could be used to leverage some of the financial needs of the Alpine School. And I can see an advantage there, especially where we see that charter schools have no reserves generally when they start. And this could be a way of creating some reserves that could be shared. But I also see that this really is then no longer two independent bodies contracting with a third body. They really have become intertwined at that point. And I don't know if that remains the situation in Alpine, whether they continue to need the financial resources and backing of the Casper School. But if it is, I think that's a different model than what John Waller was suggesting. And I think it's more in line with what you were suggesting, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Would you like to hear from Jessica Leneve?
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, are we trying to make a decision today, or are we just?
No, I'm trying to get all the facts on the table so that a decision can be made, say, before our February meeting.
I suggest we move on with the agenda because we've had this horse out here and we've beaten on it quite a bit. Maybe we ought to let it rest for a little while.
Yeah.
Everyone else, you feel the same way? Fred, Alan?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, I think at least I'm ready to move on, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the application committee report. You're up, Alan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just an update. So the application is under review, and along with that, what we looked at this last time was a rubric for evaluating the items that are in the application. And so we've had wonderful support from Gina in developing that and revising that so that we can, and that's a tool that we will not be using as a board, but it will be used by WDE personnel as they're reviewing applications. Because again, this is a tool for evaluating not only the state charters but also district charters. So this is not something we can bring forward for a vote per se, but we've been providing some input and recommendations to how this can be updated, particularly for the state charter. So that rubric, really being able to make sure that it's going to have the details that we need when we start reviewing the applications when they come in. So we were able to hopefully leverage our experiences from this last cycle to say, wait a minute, we didn't have enough information here, or we didn't have enough information there. And so we really want to make sure that we have that when the applications come in. So again, I think the rubric, the application set, the rubrics we've been looking at, and so I think we're ready to go for when the applications start rolling in.
Well, good. Anyone else from the applications committee want to chime in?
And again, as always, thanks to John and Elaine, Fred, and Jill. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Fred, go ahead.
Fred, sorry.
Madam Chair, I was just going to say, John's got his hand up too, I believe, but I just wanted to point out that also having that intent, that we've already seen that come through. So I thought that was a good add under Alan, your leadership, and John Waller. Thank you.
John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this going to require a change to the application process that is approved by WDE? And is there a necessity for going through a rulemaking process here so that we can have something in place by March 1? And then finally, and kind of off to the side, I just wonder if we've had response yet to that notice of intent, which it's very premature, but if there is some information out there, I'd like to know what it is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And
John Waller, do you want to answer that, or do you want Elaine to answer that, or Alan, do you want to take it?
I want Alan to take it.
So I started opening my mouth, so I'll go ahead and take
I'm
it.
happy to jump in.
So,
You go ahead.
for this go around, John Masters, we worked completely within the rules that are existing so that we were not going to need any rules changes going forward. So again, what we were presenting were just some recommendations to the WDE in terms of what will be helpful to the board as we're doing our reviews, but completely within the existing rules.
I will say, though, that we will be paying attention and advocating with the House and Senate Education Committees to have the bill that has been drafted, which changes some of the time windows or eliminates some of the time windows and puts a total time of 120 days for the process, and hope that gets through the legislature this session, though. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
moving on. Is Gina next? I believe so.
Hello there.
Hi there. How are you?
All right. Thanks for having me. Um, can I jump in, or did you have any questions before we get going?
It's your show. Go for
All
it.
right. Oh, I like that. All right. Am I allowed to share my screen? Yes. Super. All right. So this is just a short slide deck here, but I wanted to take the opportunity to step back and do a little recap and then talk about what's going on right now and then look ahead. So previously completed and submitted materials that we've worked on over the, I guess, almost a couple of years now. So I know you've had some new members join you all on your board. So this is a list of some of the things that I think all of the things that we have submitted that have been completed. A lot of them have already been implemented. Ready to open is on here. That's one of the items that I heard you just talking about not too long ago. And we've gone through a lot of these. Some of these were used in that first application cycle that we went through that you were just talking about with Alpine. And so this also includes the rubric that you were just talking about, but these are the things that have been submitted to you all and to John for review and implementation.
Do you want us to hold questions to the end, or?
Yeah, it's just I only have 2 more slides. So yeah, why don't we
Okay.
do that because we might
Okay.
overlap here a little bit. So things that have just recently been submitted that haven't yet been finalized. So the academic framework, I've been working with John and Elaine and some other folks from WDE. John now has in hands a copy of the academic framework. We've had some conversations, and I think we'll probably still have another back and forth here, but before he's comfortable bringing it to you all for approval. But I'll let John talk about that. The rubric to accompany the application. I think we're done with that. John sent back a couple edits from the team, and I've incorporated those and sent that back today, I think. Did that go to you today, John?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. So you have that. And then the ready to open process and checklist. So I've sent a draft of that, but we haven't gone through that together yet, John, to make sure that everything is covered. Though I know you've been using the crosswalk that we did with the 2 applications to move some things to the ready to open phase. So ready to continue with that when you are.
Okay.
And then upcoming a recorded application reviewer training. I'll be delivering that before the end of next week. That will be similar to the training we did with WDE folks last year. It'll be a little bit slower, a little more intentional in that I'd like to do this twofold. So there will be the recorded piece, and then you can see here the next part is the application Zoom session. So I've decided to separate this into two pieces so it's more effective. The first one will be kind of sharing the information, going through the purpose and some examples. Then when we meet on Zoom, it'll be more kind of putting those things into practice. So we're going to spend more time calibrating because I think that's where things fell through the crack last time. So hopefully this will get everyone feeling more comfortable and providing some more robust comments regarding their choice for the rubric. So when it's time for you to look at the next step to develop questions for clarification, questions for the capacity interview, you'll have these details at your fingertips. Once the performance frameworks are accepted, we'll move on to an annual report template. Can't really get going on that too much until you know what it is you are holding the schools accountable for in that framework. So until we have those solidified, probably won't get started on that, though we do have the financial and organizational one. You have it, I think, have approved both of those. So I can get started at that point. And then we've submitted a draft monitoring calendar quite some time ago, but I think it'll be important to go through and recalibrate the monitoring calendar against the performance framework and help you implement that so that when staff are receiving data from schools, we know where it aligns with the framework in the cycle of the charter school. And that is actually all I have. So if you have questions, happy to answer those.
So I can't decide if you can take your slide down that, thank you. I can't decide if John Masters is just hot on it or he has left his hand up. So, John?
It's exciting stuff.
I have a question. The template on the last slide suggests that there'll be a lot of reporting, and we have discussed kind of just on a high level digital collection of that information. And I don't know whether NACSA or others that we are, well, NACSA, let's say, has a tool to help us gather that information. But it's something that we ought to consider as a means of making it easy for our charters and for us, and to keep everything in a consistent fashion so that that it's easy, especially for us to consistently review things. So I'll just pose that to you, Gina, and wait to hear what you say.
There are two that I know of that we are aware of at NACSA, specific platforms that are built just for this purpose, for charter school authorizers to collect information from schools. And that doesn't mean it has to come directly from the schools, because as we've spoken before, I encourage you to get as much information as you can from WDE, so schools are not sending things to the department and to you, so it's not duplicative. But in terms of receiving and housing information, Epicenter is the platform that the National Charter Schools Institute has, and ReportWell is another organization. You may have seen both of those at the NACSA conference at vendor tables. They do, of course, come with a cost. I have used one of them in my time as an authorizer. It most certainly does make things easier. I have two thoughts on this. When you have only a few schools, it's not too hard to manage things if you set up Google folders and checklists. It can be a little bit of a bear, but it's manageable. When you get up to 5, 6, 7 schools, that's when it starts to take more time on staff, and time is money. And so at that point, the cost becomes sort of offset, if you understand what I'm saying. So if you can afford to purchase one of these now, I would encourage it, because the sooner you start building it, and it does take some work, and And I'm happy to, work with whomever. We have good relationships with both of those organizations to help you set it up. The sooner you do that, the easier it is to transition right into that. You can even receive your application in there. But I think if you wanted to hold off on that for a little bit, I could also, work with John and Elaine to see what makes sense to do internally in a more simplified way. But yes, John, you are thinking along the right lines here. Having something built specifically to do this is the way to go. Once you start to have more schools and more revenue to the board through those schools, you may be in a better position to do that. You may have loads of cash on hand now, which would be even better.
Madam Chair, follow up.
Yes.
So if we were, let's say we went with Epicenter, would it be advisable to require in the charter agreement that the school also have whatever it takes to input that data through Epicenter? Is that something that needs to be incorporated once we make a decision? Or can we just...
Yeah, it's an online platform. So when you purchase it, you have the platform. The schools are able to log in with their credentials. They would see just what's associated with their school. And it's as simple as uploading, attaching something to an email. You just, click on the button, find your file, click on it. You can add a little note. If it's something that's not applicable, you can set it so it doesn't even show up on that school's list. It sends calendar reminders. It does make things pretty seamless. So in terms of what the school would need, they wouldn't need anything. In terms of where you're requiring them to submit things, I think requiring submission in and of itself is probably enough. I don't know that people would go out of their way to use the calendar in Epicenter and then leave and email it to you. If you think that schools need that, I wouldn't specifically say Epicenter because then you are tied to that in the contract. I would, Mackenzie can help you, but something rather, schools will use the method identified by WCSAB in order to submit required data, something like that.
Yeah, thank you.
So is it compatible with our systems? I guess, John and Elaine, that's sort of the $1 million question.
Madam Chair.
John?
I spoke with Trent on the question of financial information. They do not really gather much financial information at a school or district level. They get the audit reports annually, and they look to the Department of Audit to review those. So, from the finance side, I don't think we have a compatibility issue. Everything else, probably we do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? So Gina, I have one question. Circling back, I'm not sure if you were on it when John Masters brought this up, but is this ready to open? Is this the report that they start the year before and they do all these things? And so by the time they're at the end of it, this is all put together and we say, check, yep, everything's done.
Yes, that basically is the bridge from the application approval to the opening. So at the time of application, there are certain things that aren't needed in order to be approved. Like you might not need your student handbook ready at the time of being approved to move forward. Certainly you need that before you open school. So that, for example, would be in that ready to open.
Okay, thank you. And I will say just one editorial comment. I think that the last approval cycle that we went through, I think we did not do a good job of using any of the rubrics that were determined. And I think it had to do with the difference in calibration between you and WDE. So I'm hoping that we move through that.
Yes. Any other questions? Because there's one other thing I just wanted to share.
Go ahead.
All right. I also wanted to add that John and I connected and he shared with me a template for tracking information associated with the invoices that we submit to you all. So I don't know whoever's on the committee that wanted that, but we're good to go. I have that. And so starting with January 1, we're tracking that time on a separate sheet as well, so that when you want access to that, we will have that handy. I figure at this point, I'll just send those to John, like at the end of every month.
Very good.
Thanks.
Any other questions of Gina? Seeing none, thank you, Gina.
Madam Chairman, I have one
Oh.
real quick. We will be coming up at the end of this biennium, and we may or may not have funding left on our contract. And I've been told that if we want to amend the contract, for example, to extend it into the next biennium, we will need to have Attorney General's office approval of that. There tends to be a great deal of pressure on the Attorney General's office during the last 30 to 45 days. So it will behoove us if we make some decisions about that as early as April, I suppose, end of April, early May. And so I would just alert Gina to that if she has not already been alerted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I guess John Masters, then I'm going to ask the question of you and Gina and John Waller is, what do we believe that where are we? Are we going to have money left at the end of, because we ended June 30th. Are we going to have money left?
I don't know. That's quite the answer.
I'm looking at the upcoming deliverables with the application trainer, the reviewing session, the report template, and the monitoring calendar. And I can tell you that it's going to be very close. If you do have anything left over at that point, my guess is that it would be 10 grand or so. That's my estimate. And so certainly if you want to extend or the contract via amendment or a new contract, I can connect with John Waller and we can provide you with a scope of work and all that, but let me know when you're ready for that.
John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that we should consider is we might want to use some of our discretionary, what are called special revenue funds, to put into another amendment to the contract if we want to expand or extend the scope. And so I appreciate what Gina said concerning the existing scope and the existing funds, but as a board, we might want to be thinking about that if we think that there's additional assistance that NACSA can provide to us. Thank you,
So do you know the answer to this? So if you were to file that paperwork, do you have to have an exact amount or can you have a guesstimate, say $10,000? Because if things really get bottled up at that time, perhaps we should start it now.
Well, I don't think, I think what we have to be prepared to do is actually have a contract in hand for review by the Attorney General's office. So that would require that we know the scope of the contract or the extension, if it's merely a time extension. And that would require negotiation with NACSA concerning that. And all of that would, I think, if we could do that by 1st of May, I think we'd be ahead of the game, Madam Chair.
John Waller, you got to put that on your to-do list.
My list is getting long here. I need to get another pen. But I agree. And John and I have talked about this. So yep, it's on my list. And it's difficult. I know it's John. I had the same answer John had. I'm not sure what we'll have left over because I don't know what the impact of this next round of applications will be. It could be minimal. It could be big. So I don't know. But we do have the option. We talked to Trent about extending that contract and just carrying it over into another year. So we will continue to explore that.
Madam Chair, John
Yes.
brings up the point that if we do have a series of applications pending, that this might be something again that we would carry forward into at least the first part of the next biennium as we go through the review process, that we can seek assistance from NACSA. Thank you.
Elaine, do you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. And Trent's not on today. He had something else that he was pressing. But my understanding is if there's money left in this amendment, we can extend the time for that, but we can't extend the scope of that amendment. So if you're going to change the scope of deliverables, then you'd have to have a new contract.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, Joe, we got you for about 7 minutes. Oh, 6 minutes now. But the last item that, under the business is expansion of the charter school portfolio, which would include such things as STEM, CTE, art, whatever. And Mackenzie, I'm going to turn to you first to maybe help us open up this discussion. Is that, can we solicit applications? Can we go out with an RFP, for example, to try and get people? We've been having the next application that I know that's coming in is once again another Hillsdale school. So how can we find a way to broaden our portfolio?
Sure, Madam Chair. There's an underlying question of the extent to which increasing the number of charter schools is necessarily on the board's plate as a statutorily assigned task, but I'm going to leave that aside for now. In terms of recruiting, I don't know that an RFP would necessarily be helpful because an RFP would dictate the process for application and selection, and that's already within the department's purview. In terms of informing potential applicants that the window is open, that this is available, directing them to the place where they can receive information, those sorts of things, that is certainly within that's something that the board can do without running afoul of the department's rules that govern the actual application process. So the one caution that I have based on what you've suggested is I wouldn't want this board to do anything that could conflict or otherwise overlap at all with what the department is doing there. But in terms of getting the word out, that's simply public communication, and I don't see how that would possibly interfere with the actual application process itself.
Vicki, do you have an opinion on this?
I
Because
don't. Yeah.
we keep getting the same old. How do we attract, everybody's talking CTE is really, really important to us as a state and blah, blah, blah. How can we help?
I mean, I think probably you got to lean on that association a little bit too,
Yeah.
the Charter School Association to do that piece.
Okay.
Agree.
Right, I thought you're boarding.
No.
Joe, do you want to add to this conversation at all? I know we put this on at your request and really want to try and set some framework so that we can have a better discussion, perhaps at our next meeting or something.
If I could, Madam Chair, I probably won't have much to say about this tonight. But no, that's my entire background. I continue to remain involved with Skills USA, our professional association, and so forth. And so here's what I know. As I travel around the state, and I'm on a welding committee that's involved with Skills USA, our tradespeople out there are just ready for exactly some type of CTE charter school. The support would be just overwhelming. The Wyoming Mining Association, and again, some of our members on our Skills USA board, the discussions I've had with them, our state is so dependent, and I just looked up a few statistics here from the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services, but I think that the real caveat of this is just that industry would be behind it, both even somewhat financially and so forth. I can tell you in some other trends that we're seeing, Rock Springs, for instance, their school district, I can't remember quite the square footage, but they just purchased, I believe was some 16,000, 18,000 square foot building that they're looking at increasing their offerings to CTE students. Sheridan College is building a brand new CTE facility across from in Buffalo, Wyoming, that will help assist students at the Buffalo High School as well, as an extension of their campus. So these trends are happening. So it would seem prudent that again, some way and how that happens is that we try and look at something that would benefit Wyoming students. For instance, here in Natrona County, if you look at the reporting by the Casper Star Tribune, and I believe what they reported to be accurate, this district is turning literally hundreds and hundreds of students away that can't get into the first level CTE class. And there's some different things behind that. I don't want to go into any detail. And then finally, I'll leave you with this. And again, just from if you ever get a chance and you have some time, getting on the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services, a tremendous amount of information. I don't know how they manage to collect that data, but it talks about different trends. So for instance, here's some things that just stand out. This is in the first quarter from 2024 to first quarter 2025. Agriculture and forestry support activities, it's up 12%. Specialty trade contractors up 5%. Computer, and this shouldn't come as a surprise, computer and electronic product manufacturing up 13. And finally, electrical equipment and appliance manufacturing up 24%. So though, as we all know, the things that are going on in our state, again, the mining extractions, the data centers that we're looking for, I think the time is right. And I truly believe that if you were to open up the right CTE charter school with the right personnel, the right administration, you'd have your own waiting list. You would have students flock to a school that specializes in that. And then as far as the STEM piece and something in the arts too, I think that'd be very beneficial. And that's not necessarily my area. I've always struggled with the STEM piece a little bit because a lot of that can be incorporated into a CTE charter school. And to me, STEM was our normal high school environment, but other people might have other opinions on that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Joe?
And I'm going to have to run off on you.
Let me call on Fred if I may first before he jumps on his plane. You're muted, Fred.
Not easy for me to pull out that mute. Thank you for that, Madam Chair. I would just recommend that I'd like Kiki's suggestion. Maybe we should ask the associations to come to our next meeting and present a little bit about what they do in this area and what they can do in this area. And I'm sure they're either listening now or pretty plugged in. So I think that might be helpful for us.
Great. I see Carrie's on, so that's a good suggestion. Jill?
Madam Chair, I would just say that all of these ideas are great, but we need to figure out a way to do them, a way to get that information out to folks, and so that, and maybe it's through Carrie, maybe that's the group that helps us with that. But just like Joe says, I think there's so much potential out there and we don't do anything with it. And so my understanding when I went to that NACSA conference was that, gosh, if you see something in a community that would be a great for as far as a charter school, visit with those folks. And maybe I misunderstood that, but that was what I understood it to be. So like you, I'm afraid that we're all going to get the same thing. And I think there's so much more potential out there for some other charter schools that are Wyomingized, that like the research that Joe's done, that helps our kids, so keeps our kids in Wyoming when they graduate. That's what
Mackenzie, what do you think about Jill's comment? If you see an opportunity, go talk to somebody about it.
That's perfectly fine. I mean, you're all, again, I think that just these communication pieces are fine. And I don't see any conflict there. I mean, again, my main concern is setting up some sort of like parallel, the words RFP prick my ears up. But in terms of just, can you talk to people? Can you suggest that they apply? The one thing that I would be cautious of is any appearance that you are inclined to find in their favor, or that they get some sort of special dispensation because you've encouraged them to apply. But I think that communicating the message that, all are welcome, every applicant will be considered on their own merits, is perfectly fine, so long as there's no sort of implication that they're guaranteed an approval or something along those lines, or that any individual board member intends to vote in favor. But I'm not concerned about that based on what I've heard.
Thank you. Who else did it? John Waller, do you have something you wanted to say? You're muted. You're muted.
Man, I was going crazy on mute. So no, let me start over. I just want to say this is a super important topic, and what I would like to propose that we look at this when we get done with this application cycle in July, and we bring. There's a lot of folks working in the same vein right now, and I think if we pulled those folks together, I've got a lot of contacts in Colorado, and we could hear about what other people are doing, what's been successful, and I think it would be a good launching area, because then they would be prepped they're going to submit something next year. But we have, I guess, there's tons of interest, there's tons of resources out there. I would love to organize something where we're all on the same page and working towards that goal. Charter schools have an interest in it, public schools have an interest in it, business and industry, the state economy. There are a lot of players that want to have this conversation, want to move forward. So it is definitely on my radar. I just feel like the timing for this would be in that July, August timeframe when we're done with this next wave. But my 2 cents worth.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think we have a lot of work to do right now. And I would say but I just don't want it to fall off the radar, because I think it's huge for our state and for our kids. And so certainly I won't forget, and I'll have Joe remind me too once in a while. So.
Very good. Thank you. So moving on to our action item, John Waller and Doug.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The one we didn't cover was Finance Committee. I don't know if we wanted to do that.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. And
Sorry, John Masters. Do you have anything you'd like to add about Finance Committee?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We were unable to review our financial statements because they weren't ready yet. Mr. Carroll was sick, and I met with him later, and I can discuss that if you'd like. We discussed the NACSA bill and getting the necessary information so that we could match up which items of the original proposal had been completed and whether we were on budget or over or under budget. And I think John's on top of that. Steve was going to look into helping find a student on our financial frameworks, but the students were out of session. I think they came back yesterday, so I haven't heard anything from Steve about that. We discussed briefly the JAC meeting that was held January 7th. We met on January 6th, so I just explained what I thought would be happening there, and I believe you already or will cover that. Prairie View had presented a question about their buses, which I had responded to, suggesting that they look to the department to get some assurance that they could provide to lenders that even if they went away in a couple of years, the buses would still be valuable and would be needed by other schools or perhaps even the same students under Platte Valley. I don't know what became of that. We have received audits from Wyoming Classical, Cheyenne Classical, and we had a preliminary from Prairie View. Prairie View had some questions, and I don't think we've received their final audit even now. So we discussed those as well. And I can fill you in if you'd like on my meeting that I had with John Waller and Trent Carroll or not. It's up to you, Madam Chairman.
What's the board's pleasure? Well, I don't see any smiling faces or hands raised or anything, John. I mean, it's kind of bad.
Yeah, it's gripping financial information. So it's up to you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to have him give that information.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so we discussed how to collect all of the financial reports and documents into one location. And what I would call in Microsoft a folder. I don't know what Google calls it. And then to have subfolders for each biennium, and then within the biennium subfolders for each month. And Trent's going to be working on that. And we also discussed the presentation of the financial reports that we get now, where I was hoping that we could segregate and view those expenditures which are essentially within our control and those expenditures that are fixed, such as salaries and benefits. And he's working on that as well. And based upon that, to provide to us a column that shows whether we are on budget, below budget, or over budget. And so we had a very productive conversation about that as well. We also had a fairly lengthy discussion about the administrative fee and how it works. And when we do allocate the money we've collected under the administrative fee to specific budget accounts, they did that for us last time. And I suggested that maybe in the future, if we could, that ought to be an issue that the Finance Committee brings to the board for approval, since it's taking funds over which we have a great deal of latitude and moving them into budget categories, normally on kind of as needed, but sometimes we may want to fund those budget categories in advance, knowing we have upcoming expenditures. An example would be out-of-state travel, if we knew we were going to be sending people to the NACSA conference, for example. And then
Can I ask you a question?
you bet, Madam Chair.
So when you move it into a category, is it stuck there or can you move it someplace else?
There is an ability to move it elsewhere.
Okay.
What I'm mostly concerned with is that we don't take our funds, which are outside of the state budget recapture process, and then put them into a place where they are exposed to recapture at the end of the biennium. In other words, we want to be able to carry them over and use them as beneficial to the process in the next year. So we discussed that as well, Madam Chairman. And I used the example of the 100 series, which is set aside for salaries and related salary expenses like benefits, that in the normal process of state government, it's very difficult to move things out of 100 back into, let's say, 900, which is kind of a catch-all for contracts and lots of things. And Trent says there's a process for that, but he's aware of the complexity of that. So we should also, although I don't want to bore you with all those details. Let's see. And then, as I mentioned, I said, what kind of information are you getting from the schools? And they don't get much information. And that's unlike, I think, our duties. I think we have a duty to stay on top of the financial conditions of our schools, not just to rely on the annual budget. And the reason for that is if we see a school that causes us concern of any sort, we may want to have a closer monitoring of how that school is managing its finances, so that we don't have a surprise failure of a school for a financial condition that maybe could have been avoided. We're not there yet, but we may want to get to that soon. And it's not something that information flows through the WDE and is available to us. And I see Alan had a question. So, Alan.
Yes, thank you, John. So you were talking about Google folders and so forth. Could we use Google Forms to be able to collect, not everything, maybe just some key indicators, so that, again, I don't want this to be a major burden on the schools, but maybe something that, again, just some key pieces of information on a more frequent basis, just so we can have something to go on, but through a form rather than through uploading like a full sheet of all the expenses.
Yeah, I think we could. And if we used a form and we provided it to them in advance, where they could populate the form with their information, that would be helpful to us, as opposed to them giving us information and then we trying to fit it into our form. So I think that's a possibility. We're still, this committee still is trying to understand the nature and scope of its work, as I'm sure your committee is as well. So Yeah, I think we could do that. I don't know what it'd look like just right now, but possible.
Okay.
I see
All right.
Fred.
And again,
I'm sorry.
oh, sorry. Yeah, just again, not to be a major burden on the schools, but maybe again, just some key pieces of information that just give us an idea of how things are coming along, that they
Yeah,
might be able to report on a more frequent
we
basis.
asked for information one point. We got all sorts of responses from the schools. One gave us a detail of their cash expenditures ledger, and others kind of gave us summary. So, yeah, we would need to help them understand what it is we're specifically requesting.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Fred had his hand up, Madam Chairman.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and John. I'm sorry about the background noise, but I'm wondering, because there are a number of failures of charter schools across the country, if there's some mechanism that we can kind of tie to Alan's concerns, a checklist that focuses on mode of failure. You know, if we can study where do they tend to fail and what specific things should we be looking for that might be triggers out there to say we see a problem. And again, you know, we don't want to overburden the schools, but I think your point is on target. Where can they get in trouble? How do we monitor that?
So the framework that we've adopted last month, I think, actually kind of does that. And that's where I'm hoping we can get a system with the assistance of somebody from the University of Wyoming, a student from the University of Wyoming, of how to perform these various tests, liquidity tests, for example, indebtedness, and whether they're able to service their debt, things like that. I think the frameworks which NACSA drafted probably were the product of their own analysis of where charter schools tend to struggle, and things that we need to be alerted to in order to help them in advance if we can. Now, I don't know if Gina's still on the phone on the call, but if she was, I think she could confirm that to us. So I think we're kind of down that road just because we've been working with the stuff that NACSA has done, and I think they have a lot of experience here. I don't.
I mean, I'll just show my biases. You know, as I kind of look at it as like we're starting this journey, particularly with the financial framework. It would be so great if we could get a system in place that recorded all of this stuff now versus having to feed it later. We could be doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Madam Chairman. And part of the frameworks require or suggest that we collect information year to year to year so that we can do trend analyses. And I think that's, again, something that I'm hoping that some bright accounting student over the University of Wyoming can assist us with.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any more questions of John? If not, can we move on to our action item, John Waller and Doug?
Yeah, thank you. I want to start by thanking Doug and Mackenzie. We met for a pretty extended time a week and a half ago and kind of finalized that parent complaint concern policy. And then I was able to meet with Doug again last Friday, just with a couple of final edits. So I do feel like that policy is in final form right now. I really appreciate the insight from Doug and Mackenzie. It was actually a fascinating conversation. So what I would like to propose is that we move to accept this. One thing I want to remind folks is that I would like to get a policy in place. It doesn't mean it couldn't be modified later. We could say, you know, this doesn't meet our needs as much, and we need to, after doing this for a while. But I do kind of want to move the ball down the field here a little bit. And I feel like we've taken a very careful, cautious look. And from a legal point of view, Doug's got a lot of background in these kind of things, and so he was able to offer a bunch as well. So I sent that out last week. Doug, do you have anything else to share about the process, or?
No, John, I don't think so. I think you and I had a good final discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate all your help. Thanks.
Can I begin by asking for a motion?
I move that we approve the parent concern complaint policy as presented.
Second?
Second.
I would second it, and I would say thank you for all the work on that, both of you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any more comments on it?
Quick question, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Does this policy, is it broad enough so that staff members can register a concern? I know the members of the public, do we consider them members of the public for that purpose?
I don't think
A
I understand.
parent concern.
What's that?
I don't think I understand your question.
Well, a member of the staff, whether it's the janitor, the lunch person, or a teacher, or even part of the administration has a concern that they are uncomfortable bringing through the internal processes. Can they can they use this process?
Can I answer that, John?
Sure.
Please.
One of the key considerations we had, we will not honor anonymous complaints unless it's alleged unlawful actions concerning children. And so it's set up, in my opinion, the way that we talked about it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, John, is that anybody can make a complaint about a charter school, but it's got to be in writing.
And in answer to your question, John, it's an interesting question. Yes, the framework would work. I mean, and the form would work, the process would work. We didn't say anything explicitly about staff members. My first, unless it was something very serious, I would want them attempting to address it at the school level first. And that's the same with parents right now. But would the process be effective, and is it set up that it would work with staff? I think the answer is yes. I'm just going through it in my head, and I think that would be.
Well, the only reason I ask is because we would need to provide some whistleblower protection, or at least anticipate that retaliation is a risk if we require the disclosure of the reporter.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem like that your first line would be their board at the school before it would come to us. I would be uncomfortable having a teacher come directly to us with a concern without giving that board a chance, with those same protections possibly. But does that make sense?
Well, certainly that's the better way. But
Yeah.
In the extreme situation where the teacher, in your example, feared that there would be retaliation for making a report, would they make that report under their name, and then we would anonymize it when we fed it back to the institution and said, please respond to this?
Let me take John off the hook and ask Mackenzie to answer that.
Oh, thanks a lot. No,
Sure.
I think that's the person to handle it. Thank you.
So there's a couple of moving pieces here. So I think sort of part of the concern that might naturally arise when you have the possibility of employees is that somebody tries to essentially try to rope the board into what is at core an employee-employer dispute.
Right.
Now, there was a process, I think it made it in the final version, John, where essentially part of the evaluation when it got to the executive director is this something that the board can act on? Is it something that relates to the charter contract as opposed to, something like an employee or employer dispute or something along those lines? So there's that. In terms of retaliation, I do recall that we had some language
That's correct.
prohibiting retaliation just in general. It wasn't
Yes.
specific to employees or anything along those lines. I think we'd contemplated that there could also be, the potential, and we're not suggesting that anybody currently involved would do this, but you build systems for continuity across generations, right? And so part of it was envisioning, what if a charter school intended to retaliate against teachers, or I'm sorry, not teachers, parents or students. And so that was the primary focus, but the language I think is broad enough to cover employees as well if they're bringing anybody there. In terms of anonymity, that gets into a delicate thing because there really isn't any statutory basis for anonymity among complainants. And as a matter of fact, you can certainly decline to use somebody's name in correspondence and everything, but the underlying complaint would potentially be available for a Public Records Act, depending on what it contained. That's a case-by-case analysis. But there isn't really a provision necessarily to as a blanket matter make complaints confidential. That said, complaints could contain information that should not be released under the Public Records Act, and obviously we would not release it if that was the case. Or we would at least, at the very least, redact it.
Yeah, I understand the complexities here, and I just raised the question because it may come up. So,
Yeah.
And as John Waller said, we can revise this later if we need to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam
Doug?
Yeah, I appreciate your concern, John Masters, but I would tell you that in my thought process, anonymous complaints or comments should be prohibited. And we could put an exclusionary in there in case of or whatever. But once you go down that road, you just shoot that thing and into pieces. And as I've mentioned in our discussions of that, I was put on a needs assessment one time in a school district as a teacher. And people were able to submit any kind of anonymous complaint they wanted about the schools and school district. And, that was some of those comments were almost pornographic, and it's just ridiculous. And it's hard to believe that people out there would do that kind of stuff, but they do. And so we were trying to protect our employees, of not only of this board, the board members, of employees of schools. If you have a complaint, put it in writing.
Well, and what I thought was we would receive it with the name of the person making the complaint. But when we forward it back to the school for consideration, if they have not already considered it, we would excise the name of the person who had filed it to protect the person from retaliation. So it would not be anonymous as it's filed. It would be anonymous as we handled it.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I don't know who's going to make that decision, but
well, our attorney. That's why we pay him the big bucks.
Well, we could, and it could be stated that if one of them comes in that way, we submit it to our attorney for determination. But that language is not in there. We can,
okay. And we can visit that if it ever shows its head. We don't need to hold this process up.
Okay.
I'm prepared to vote, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
I'll just say this. I have faith in our executive director, and I have faith in our attorney that if a situation like this arises, that they will work through a solution that protects all. And I also think that probably one of the biggest challenges in front of us after we approve this is going to be how do we get the word out on the street so that, I know John Waller is going to take it to his principal meeting, but how do we make sure that parents understand that this is indeed the process and so they get redirected?
Well, put it on our website for one thing.
Absolutely, front and center.
Right.
Well, if I could, and this hopefully this I add in our safeguards and standards, we said that anonymous complaints will not be accepted. But then we go on and say all information shall be handled in accordance with FERPA and applicable privacy laws. And then we go into the non-retaliation that's always prohibited. And of course, you can't cover it all, but we tried to, like intimidation, harassment, adverse action, or reprisal.
Mackenzie, do we have a whistleblower law?
We do, but only for state employees, and there's a particular process that would need to be followed for that. I'm not aware of any whistleblower law that would be generally applicable to private employers, or there may be something for other governmental subdivisions that I would have to check into, but I'm pretty sure there's nothing that covers private employers.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're time to vote. Put this policy to effect here. All those in favor of approval of the parent concern policy, parent concern / complaint policy, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? It passes. We are
Madam,
now,
Madam
yes,
Chair,
yes,
be-
Doug.
before we go to open it up for public comment, I'd like to have the privilege of the floor. So whenever we get there.
Please. We're opening it up, so go ahead.
Okay, I want to thank everybody who made comments and has questions about the Alpine situation. But Chad said something that rang a bell with me when he mentioned again the absolute presence of local input in these things. And of course, all of us, other than Jill, I think, attended the meeting up in Alpine public meeting. But thinking about that again, this whole process for the Alpine School has changed dramatically. And as you recall, when we were up there, we had complaints from people afterwards that said that they were denied the opportunity to speak. And since we're looking at an entirely new picture, I'm asking that you and Fred and John Waller go up there and hold another public meeting, take input, and do it with Zoom so that those of us that want to listen could. Not, we wouldn't be able to ask questions, but just and see if that would make sure that we have the right input from local sources and that the community, we understand fully what the community wants. And I would also like to just to be fair, give service that I may make a motion at our next meeting to either rescind or repeal or postpone the Alpine application if the existence of these various uncertainties continue.
Thank you. At this point, Elaine, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Amy, I didn't allow you to do it in the middle of our discussion, but we're happy to hear from you.
Madam Chair, Amy does have her hand up.
Okay, let her in. Please turn your cameras on if you can.
Madam Chair.
There she is. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Thank you.
Can you speak up, please?
What's up?
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah.
You're really soft.
Oh, let me. Is that any better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, thank you for allowing me the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Amy Weirda. I serve as a board member on the Alpine Charter School Board. Thank you for the time you spent talking about us today here. I want to offer some clarifying information. Sorry, my daughter just walked into the room. Stop, please, stop.
Okay.
Back last spring, we had to part ways with APA for various reasons. We immediately came back to the authorizing board and said we want to pursue a partnership with Wyoming Classical Academy out of Mills. At the time, the authorizing board was not quite ready to make a decision on that. There was a lot of unknowns. You passed a resolution allowing us to move forward with the partnership, knowing that everybody needed time to work out the legal structure behind it. Here we are 7 months later. We have submitted a new amendment to our application, formally switching our service provider from APA to Wyoming Classical Academy. As we worked with these as we worked with Mills to decide what this relationship would look like, the unified governance structure was kicked around. Ultimately, though, for all the reasons that you have outlined, we submitted the application for a charter management organization structure, a CMO. That district management agreement that you have in front of you is a CMO agreement. It's just different language. One thing that was important to both parties is that our board retains local control, local input out of our school. We will retain control of our finances, board governance, decisions. That all stays in Wyoming, or I'm sorry, in Alpine with us. It's not filtered through Mills. Mills, again, acts as our contract management organization. They're going to help us with resources, services, support, training, but ultimately we are our own school with our own contract with you all. I hope that clarifies a little bit. We are happy to send you more information, whatever you need to, again, make this a smooth decision for you. I also just want to add a note. You've seen a lot of Dr. Jessica Lenieve lately. She is a wealth of knowledge. She brings expertise from other states. A lot of this language you're hearing is standard in other states. We're new to the charter game, so we're all learning together. But I want you all to rest assured that Dr. Lenieve works for us. She's not running the show. She's not making the decisions. Every action she takes is not taken until she's received board approval for it. So please know that that is how things are happening behind the scenes. Like I said, happy to provide you with more information, clarification, whatever you need, but I did not want to leave this meeting with you having a false understanding of what was going on here. So thank you.
Amy, can you perhaps, because I know one of the other things that Mr. Chamberlain is concerned about is the huge change in direction, and I know you certainly aren't the exact perfect person. It would be Dave, but can you give us an update as to why you decided to move from the graphic that you showed in terms of what the school was going to look like to the modulars where you are now?
Which graphic are you referring to?
There was a diagram that was in the package way back September of 24, I believe it was. And it showed a layout for the school. And since then, of course,
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
familiar with the fact that you purchased these modulars from I think it was the Jackson Classical School.
Yeah. So I guess I can't, it's going back to a time before I was on the board, so I can't speak specifically to it. I will say generally, as this process has evolved over the last 4 years, when the founding group started doing market research, talking to the school district, researching options for school alternatives, the actual building of the school, has changed as options became available or became unavailable. Land prices are high around here. The idea out of the gate of buying land, building a building, while it's still the long-term plan, it perhaps wasn't feasible out of the gate. These modulars came available. The Classical Academy up in Jackson built their big forever building. And so it was just kind of fortuitous timing that these became available, that we have a school-ready building, cubbies, PA systems, all the fire systems. We're in the process of getting them, again, put back together and up and running. We have utilities. Interior still needs, to be cleaned up and furnished, but yeah, it's coming together.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Meredith Leonard has her hand up. I'm guessing maybe she might want to provide some input.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask who 303. Go ahead, Meredith. Can you let Meredith in, please, to help Bree? You let Allison in.
Yep, she needs to accept. So she just has to push the button.
I'm not. I'm with the media. I'm not part of this.
Oh, I apologize.
It's okay.
She said.
All right. Go ahead, Meredith.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to clarify this note. The main reason the modulars came into play is that that was the convincing pivot point that allowed the mayor and the town council to feel comfortable leasing us the land for $1 per year because they felt uncomfortable with us opening a school that may or may not be successful and building a stick frame building with a foundation that they would then be responsible for finding a new tenant, and it would be very specific to the needs of a school. So it would really limit how they would be able to utilize that land moving forward. So the opportunity to purchase the modulars allowed us to negotiate with the town of Alpine and lock in the land for very, very minimal cost to the school. The
Thank you,
other,
Meredith. Go
thank
ahead.
you. Oh, I was just going to say the other comment that I wanted to touch on was, you know, the request for another community meeting. I think given what has been put out there publicly from a few community members, we know very well that they would show up. However, I think that there's been a couple of other opportunities for the community to show up in support of the school. For example, we had a golf tournament fundraiser in which we raised around $50,000 in one day. We had 175 people show up. That speaks highly for the community. We always give opportunities for these naysayers to come in and try to shut us down and try to discourage us from doing what is best for our children. And the community is speaking up. We've raised roughly $380,000 to help us with the interior build out of our school. We have a number of interested parents that are constantly reaching out to us. The challenge that we're running into is not being able to fully give them answers on the curriculum and some of these other barriers that we are very close to being able to break down. So the community is interested. They want us here. Parents will speak up with enrollment, which is something that we're working on and is ongoing. But the community has been overwhelmingly supportive. My concern with a meeting specific to the wants of the community for this school is that it would just give another opportunity for the naysayers to have a voice. And when parents are needing to be at home with their children, raising their children, getting them ready for the next day, the community is speaking up. It's just not in one specific avenue. Thank you.
What do you forecast your enrollment to be?
130 students.
I know I attended the golf outing for a bit, and you're right. I mean, there was a huge showing, 124 golfers, and then you know, your dinner. I do know that, you know, perhaps you should explain to the board a little bit more about what went on at the dinner in terms of how you explain to them what was going, you know, what you're doing, what this school is going to look like in terms of the culture and the curriculum and so on and so forth.
Yes, absolutely. And I do apologize. My phone is about to die, so I'm just going to set it down so it can charge while I speak. I realize this is not a good angle
That's
for
okay.
me.
You're fine.
I'm willing to risk it. Yes, so the tricky part is with Hillsdale, their curriculum is you have to apply to be approved as a Hillsdale school. So we were somewhat limited in what we were able to express with the community, but the things that we focused on was the classical education and the idea that it really does build character and develop students that will give back to the community, which is a key point. The classical education is somewhat new to parents, but we've had a lot of parents speak up in regards to the support for the low-tech curriculum, teaching cursive, Latin, all of the beautiful things that come with a classical education. That's one of the avenues that we spoke on. The other avenue that we spoke on was just the local community school and what it can do for the town of Alpine and the valley at a broader scale. And then the third aspect we focused on was just having choice within education. I appreciate the fact that, you know, there's a desire to bring CTE schools and STEM schools and other things. However, schools are incredibly difficult to bring together. And it has taken, we have now 10 board members working tirelessly because we see value in this type of education. We see value in the classical education. And then we were able to play a short video outlining what Hillsdale curriculum looks like and what it's trying to do. And we got a lot of support, and we actually inspired a donor at that event that donated a large sum to our efforts.
So do you have any estimate of what your break-even level of enrollment is? Amy?
The short answer is no. Dr. Lineave offered some insight to us on our enrollment. She said, again, based on other schools and our similar, demographic, you sort of see 3 waves of enrollment. We had an initial enrollment period that we ran. I believe we had 27 students at the end of that, which I want to applaud parents for that. To say I'm going to sign my child up when I don't know who the teachers are, I don't know who the principal is going to be, I haven't had a chance, to see the inside of the building. That's an incredible leap of faith on parents' part. And it's a testament that they believe in this school, they believe in what we're doing. So applause to them. She anticipates we are in the final hiring process for our headmaster. We are hoping to do a press release soon regarding that. And so once we have a headmaster, once we have a face to our school, we anticipate another wave of parents signing up. And then thirdly, she noted us Wyoming people, we hibernate. And so she said, while other parts of the state do their enrollment in the fall, she said it's very typical for Colorado, Wyoming. We just don't think about our kids until May. And so to answer your question, we don't know our break-even projections yet. This is going to come with our headmaster. We're going to sit down and really do, the deep dive on that. It's in the upper 90s-ish to break even. But again, we're hoping, by summertime to be well above that.
I do know that your facility cost should be fairly minimal since the modulars are paid for. They're not paid for?
We have a bank loan on the modulars.
Okay.
So
But your lease on the land is $1 a year.
Yes.
So I was also under the impression, in addition to the discussion with the town council, that part of the reason for the modulars is timing and cost. They're much less expensive than what would have happened for you to do the full-blown. And I'm also under the impression that as you expand, the town of Jackson, or the town and county of Jackson is building a courthouse, and they're using the other 5 modulars for the courthouse. And when that courthouse is finished, they will go to give you the first right of refusal to purchase them.
That is true. It remains to be seen if they gut those down to an unusable form to us. We'll see.
Okay.
But yes, that is true.
Madam Chair, I might add that their budget for that is $3.9 million over their original estimate, and we're coming in well under that. We've had community members step up and give plumbing for free, electrical work for free. We have a design firm helping us with a playground design that we can help to raise money for. They're doing that pro bono. The list goes on and on.
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that the curriculum is unresolved, because I thought you were just adopting the same curriculum that is being used by Wyoming Classical.
We are, but because we are our own board and our own school, we have to apply separately, similar to the way that we're applying and amending our contract with you all, because we are our own school and our own board. So they're not recognizing us as under the umbrella of Wyoming Classical Academy. They're
I see.
recognizing us as our own curriculum school.
Okay, I see.
I would just
Yes,
add,
Amy?
we have last week signed the non-disclosure agreement with Hillsdale, so we have their curriculum to review over the next few weeks. I believe, while it hasn't been settled, I believe our plan is to, again, review that, discuss anything we need to at our next board meeting in February, and then we return a survey to Hillsdale, and then we get like our final approvals from them. So under that unified governance structure we were kicking around, yes, we would have just had straight access from Mills, but again, that's not the structure. So
Okay,
a couple extra steps in the process.
thank you.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I see Jessica's out there. I don't know if Jessica wants to, and Dave Jenkins, I don't know if they want to add anything to the conversation or if we're good. I don't see any hands up. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam
Any
Chairman,
other public? John Masters? Where'd John Masters go? I guess he left.
I think it was a failed muting attempt.
Madam Chair, I accidentally moved him instead of somebody else, so I'm bringing him back. I apologize.
Oh, now he's a panel. Now he's an attendee.
He's back.
Madam Chairman, I was going to move for adjournment if it's appropriate.
Well, thank you. I thought, you just all of a sudden vanished.
I adjourned myself, huh?
All right.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you all. Sorry it took us 6 minutes more than we should, but
You'll get the bill.
all right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you. Good
Night,
night.
everyone.